22. We're going to go through specific movements that require a little more analysis, get you guys nice and comfortable, ready for the judging on the day. Also for the athletes watching as well, just give you a better idea as to the flow of things and what to sort of look for and what to practice and be aware of in the lead up to the day. So make sure you watch this video. So we're going to go through what one really the main thing will be. We'll show you the air bike how to readjust or set that to 0, because that'll be the judge's responsibility on the day. We'll have some people wandering around and probably do it for you, but just in case you have to, you'll kind of know how to do that as well. We'll go over the GHDs to sort of show you the setup and how the risers will work as well. But for now, we'll start with the dead ball. This is probably going to be the most technical movement of the workout. So to start with, we're going to go with a dead ball squat clean, the RX standard. So really what we're looking for here is to get the ball to your shoulder and move into the squat in one motion. You don't have to drop straight to the bottom, but as long as you are continuously moving down under the ball as you receive it, then we're going to get a good lift out of you. Okay? And what you can do if you need to is you can take the ball into the pouch first and then up onto the shoulder and then squat down. Again, just making sure as it reaches the shoulder, you're straight down into the squat from there. So you have to practice a little bit if you're going to use that method to make sure you're not stopping and then dropping. Okay? Alright, from there, in terms of things we're looking for across the RX and the intermediate categories is making sure that you are getting a full lockout each time you do a rep. So things we're watching for is that you're not finishing with the hips still open. Okay, or the hips still closed. Right, so making sure you're opening up all the way to complete the rep. So especially moving fast, you're kind of catching the ball and staying with your chest over. So make sure that chest comes back and those hips come through before you pop the ball off. Okay? Especially doing things like touch and goes and stuff like that, which is permitted as well, provided the ball touches the floor. Pretty straightforward. Now, for our intermediates, same standard in terms of full lockout with this clean. What you can do though is get the ball to your shoulder first and then squat down from there. Remember, you can do the full dead ball, the shoulder style set, and then squat down once you've braced and ready to go. Okay? That's all pretty straightforward, hopefully. From there, we're looking at the dead ball to shoulder for the beginners and also masters beginners. Okay, so key part here is that it stays on your shoulder. You don't lose it backwards. If you lose it backwards over your shoulder, that'll be a no-no. You have to do that one again. Okay? From here, once you've locked out of the way, just dropping the ball down. That's your rep completed there. Cool. I think that's pretty straightforward. Anything else? Dead balls? No? Moving on. Alright. So the GHDs will obviously be different on the day. Just give you a bit of an idea how this will move. It's a pretty straightforward standard. Touch the floor, touch the top pad. So nothing crazy or different in here, just making sure you're touching. Now we will have the risers, so if you come around here, you'll see that we'll set different risers based on your category. So this will be the RX females, the RX intermediate females will be slightly higher again, the RX and intermediate males and also Masters Advanced males will be exactly the same. The Masters Advanced females will be the same as the intermediate standard. Alright guys, so in terms of resetting the air bike, pretty straightforward. All you need to do is go tap, tap, start. So it's important, only 2 touches. If you do multiple, past 2, it's gonna flick out, alright? And then you'll see it's frozen here on the screen, which is not good, right? So what we want to do is that 2 and then restart, right? Make sure that the seconds are ticking over. Okay, that'll give you an indication that you've actually got it zeroed out. Again, hopefully there'll be people on the day able to reset it for you, but if you do get in the position where you need to reset your rower, one more time, stop, stop, start. Alright, for mat sit-ups for our beginners and masters beginners, so feet must be touching some part of your feet, doesn't really matter which one. From there we're going to go touching the ground behind. Again, you can have your hands wide apart as long as it's above your head. So you're obviously not allowed to touch out to the side. Okay, it has to be above your head, but you don't have to have your hands together or anything like that. From there you can come forward, sit up, and then touch or cover your toes. Okay, the covering the toes is key. We don't what you're doing is just touching some part of your foot. It has to be covering your toes with your hands. Okay? And moving through from there, you must use the ab mat on the day, simulating a similar kind of effects of the GHDs that people are doing in more advanced categories. In terms of no reps, what you're not allowed to do is lift your feet up off the floor when you're completing a rep. Okay? Or if you almost get the rep, for example, bring it down and you bring them up towards the end as you're touching, that will be a no rep as well. So you need to make sure your feet stay down. Right, what number 2 involving the snatches. So what we're looking for here is full lockout once again. In terms of the RX intermediate standard, you can do a power snatch, can do a full snatch, you can do a split snatch. There we go if you really want to. As long as your feet end up back in line and you have a full lockout at the top. Again, same sort of thing, especially if you're touch and going, guys, it's important that you're not leaving your booty behind, alright? You may lock your knees, but the booty's back here. We need to make sure that those hips are coming through to complete the rep. Not doing those, okay? As I said, generally you will see the biggest issue will be either just standing up, a couple of steps and leaving yourself like here. Okay, so again, just make sure you complete the rep, or making sure that when you're touching going, you're not getting carried away and kicking off when you're about here. Making sure you're locking before you bring down to that second or third rep. Okay. For our beginners, you guys can power snatch, you can ground overhead, you can do a hybrid overhead to ground, whatever it is, as long as you're taking the bar from the floor and then locking out overhead for the ground overhead to count. So again, clean and jerk. Could be all the snatches you just saw there as well, as long as again they're back in line and they're locked out the top. If they do choose to do a clean and split jerk, just make sure their feet come back together when they're locked out. Now in terms of, especially if they are doing shoulder overhead more so, making sure that we are locked out the top. So we're not doing the whole head behind thing. Okay. Or yeah, bringing the bar down too soon. And whoa, steady on there, Chief. Alright, lock out, shoulder, head through position, shoulder in line with ear is the one we're generally looking for. Okay, doesn't have to be head straight through, but as long as that bar is in line with our body, we're happy. And that elbow is locked to the best of their ability. If you have, or if an athlete has any kind of issue where they physically can't lock their elbow, just making sure they show the judge beforehand, and then they show what that lockout looks like when they're fresh. Just one rep quickly to show, and then you'll have an idea of what you're looking for there. The head judge comes over and they have a reason to just say lockout issue, and then we can leave them alone. Okay? Alright, pretty straightforward in that regard. In terms of your squares, you'll notice here Chloe's currently standing in a box. Okay, the goal is to keep you in your box so that everyone else around you is safe as well. So if you do happen to step a little bit, that's fine, but making sure that your foot doesn't touch this line or the behind line either. If you happen to go backwards, please don't do that. Right? But ideally, try to line yourself up in the middle each time. That's going to be key to making sure you have enough room to lift. Okay, but it's quite big, right? So plenty of space to work with. But if you do happen to touch the line, judges, that will be a no rep. So even if one part of their foot touches that line, the crowd's excited, everyone's amped. Sorry to be that guy. No rep. Okay, didn't count. Second thing, athletes, and this is mainly for the males. Okay, love that gorilla method, right? If you're doing a lift, please don't back up into the other square, right? This is not your square to back into. Poor guy behind you is trying to lift, trying to focus, and all you can see is your booty staring at him. Stay in your box. If you need to back up a little bit, you know, have your bar slightly higher, step back a tiny bit, but stay in your box, okay? Also in terms of when we do the skipping as well, so when we start, the bars will be slightly at the top of the box, so you've got room here to skip. Once you've done that, you can put your rope, if you like, just to the side here at the back of the box, or you can chuck it to the middle bit here, and then you can roll your bar back and then begin your snatches from there. Second thing with the change plates, you're going to have change plates on this side of the middle lane. Make sure when you are changing weights that your plates don't end up halfway on here. Again, this is for your own safety and also those around you. So if you are dropping bars, they're not hitting plates and rotating or things like that, right? So they have to be on the outside here to keep everything nice and condensed and safe. Anything else with that one? Yes, so in terms of loading your bars as well, guys, collars must always be on the outside, they must be on the bar, you can't go without them. Change plates as well, so making sure you're not doing weird configurations of this with a change plate, with a big bumper plate. Change plates must be on the outside, and collars on the outside of all the plates as you go through. Yeah, so your base plates will also stay the same throughout. So if the bar is started with 15 kilos, it will stay with 15 kilos. I don't think that'll affect too many of you, especially being the RX, your base plate will be 20 and 10s anyway, so that should be fine as you go through your lifts. Cool. Last little bit is dropping of plates as well. If you do have the 5s, you'll be asked to lower the plates. If you're using 10s and whatnot, it's fine to drop. Just obviously be aware you're trying to stay within your box as well. So it's more important just as much for you, but also the health of the plate, that you are controlling the bar somewhat. Also for RX athletes, it's important to make sure you're communicating with your judge what you are currently actually doing, right? So are you attempting a max? Let's say you get the 85s, you get through 8 of them, you're running out of time and you want to try and hit a heavier lift, you need to let your judge know that's what you're doing so they can know to move across the other column and put down whatever weight it is you're trying to hit for a max. Remembering there's tie breaks, all that sort of stuff, so just a quick communication that I'm now doing a max, I'm doing a warm-up lift, whatever it is, so the judge is aware of what they're actually going to tick off there. Again, if you're on the 85s as an example, you're just continuing at 85s, obviously you don't have to communicate that, they're going to be aware that you're still doing the workout, but just so you're clear with that. The other thing is making sure that when you're putting a weight on, you're telling your judge what you're lifting, okay? Just making it easier for them. If they agree with what you've got, yeah, I'm happy with that, that looks like 90, 95, then you can go ahead and lift. So there's no conjecture or whatever at the end. You will have to load your own bars as well, that goes to every category, so the judge will be able to help you with that. Judges, so the dreaded double under single skip count, not to stress. What we want you guys to focus on is making sure you're counting their feet every time they take a jump, right? So that's the easiest way to take away all of this and just focus on what they're doing with their jumps each time. That's the easiest way to count. What you can also do for yourself is every time they hit a milestone, so if you can like count out loud, every time they hit a milestone such as 10, 8, 9, 10, and make it a little 12, but make more of an emphasis on that, and that helps you as well register where you're at also. Okay? Now in terms of beginners, you're not allowed to do the boxer style skip. Okay, your fancy footwork or crossovers or whatever you have going on for yourself. We just want a 2-foot jump. Okay? Standard 2-foot jump, singles, pretty straightforward, right? Anything outside of that would be considered a different movement, right? In terms of double unders, you can do the double unders, single skip, double under, whatever. In that case, it's a little bit easier to count for judges, but if you are doing that, count them basically every time they turn twice or more aggressively with their hands. So you cancel out doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So in some ways it slows things down a little bit. Just ignore the single skip in between as if it doesn't count. Alright, so what number 3? We have the burpees over the plate box thingy, right? Goal here is to make sure that you are jumping up with 2 feet and you're jumping onto the plates with 2 feet. Okay, so we'll have a look at some good reps. And notice Chloe's using the step in between, that's fine. She can also jump straight onto it from there. So the next one, jump up, straight on, that's fine as well. Cool. So really what we're looking for here is, so get down to the bottom of the burpee for me. The jump up is with 2 feet. Okay, and then the jump onto the plate is 2 feet. If they take a little step in between, they want to set themselves, whatever it is, that's fine, as long as those 2 things are ticked off. In terms of the burpee itself, we want to make sure the chest is on the floor, so none of this kind of arching up or doing like a seal at the bottom. You need to make sure the chest is touching the floor to complete the rep. Okay? Sometimes what people do is try to get too close to the plates and then they'll start pushing up. If they do, unfortunately do that, they'll need to shuffle back and make sure that they get their chest down before the rep begins. Okay? Obviously, if they're skipping onto the plate and things like that, that'll be a no rep, so making sure it's a clear 2-foot jump. The other thing with that as well, in terms of jumping up with 2 feet, the feet have to be in line. Okay, so they can't jump up with the, if they're really super efficient, they somehow magically jump themselves. This is more for the burpee at the bottom. So if you come down, they do need to jump up with their feet in line, okay, and facing the plate. So that has to happen before anything else can happen. From there, if you do some crazy Tony Hawk stuff, that's fine. We're more than happy for that as long as you jump up and you're in this position to start. Then you can Tony Hawk. Okay? In terms of the beginners, so what you guys can do is you're allowed to pretty much get down and get up any way that you like. Same with the plates. As long as both feet touch the plate at the top, then you can do as you will, right? You can do the same as the RX are doing, same as the intermediate doing, same as you want to do, just flop down, flop up, whatever it is, as long as you're getting down and getting up and getting over to the other side with both feet touching the plate, you can jump, etc. Okay? Pretty straightforward. That same goes for Masters Beginners. Masters Advanced will be the same standard as the Intermediates in terms of if you need to, well, same standard as the Intermediate, same standard as the RX. The rep is included when you get to the other side of the plates. Okay, so not the burpee itself, when you've completed the jump to the other side of the plates. Alright, so first things first, guys, we'll start with chest bars. It's a pretty straightforward standard in terms of their chest actually has to physically touch the bar. If they get close or there's a really good effort, doesn't matter, they have to physically touch. In terms of what you're looking for is below the collarbone, so obviously like it's more neck, it's not chest, right? But it needs to be explained anyway. So let's have a look, a couple of chest bars. Cool. And obviously Chloe's demonstrating kipping chest bars. You can do butterflies, whatever it is, strict if you really wanted to, as long as there's a lockout at the bottom, as long as you're making contact with the chest at the top. Pretty straightforward standard. Again, in terms of the angle, and this is super important even when you're doing pull-ups, obviously if there's judges and athletes next to you or whatnot, even if you can get in behind the athlete and just get a little bit of a look on the angle so you can physically see or be closer to. Obviously on the weekend we have people going all the way along here, so it's making sure you're obviously not going to be able to jump to the side necessarily, but if someone's here you can sort of angle yourself in that sort of position, which will give you a better view. If someone's clearly making their chin over every time, then you can probably chill out on that a little bit. Okay? Now, chin over bar, again, we're making sure it's not chin in line with bar, it's chin above bar. Okay? So, generally what you'll see if someone's kipping is they'll get a little bit more chin over the bar. If they're butterflying, it's going to be chin behind but still above the bar. Okay? So you don't have to get your chin over the bar, they just have to be above the line of the bar. We don't want it in line, obviously don't want it below. Okay, and then straightforward things like, again, lock out the bottom, which they'll all be doing if they're kipping and butterflying anyway. Okay, but really make sure that, guys, sometimes what you'll see with people is they're doing not much with the pull, throwing their chin up, but still not actually over the line. Sort of that good rep, bad rep, good rep. Okay, somewhere in between.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. So, we've got the second one. Now, in terms of the ring rows for beginners and masters, beginners, your feet, some part of your foot must be touching the line, okay, for the rep to count. From there we want full lockout, leaning back, and then from there we're going to make sure our hands are touching our chest, okay? Knuckles touching the chest. Cool? There's no requirement to lock your knees, bend your knees in, that sort of stuff. As long as you're touching that, elbows locked at the bottom, and you're getting your knuckles to your chest, the rep will count.
The rings will be set at the same height across the board, so you won't be able to adjust your rings.
Yeah. Cool. Alright, what number 4, guys? So we'll start with the R extend, the ring muscle up. The main thing we're looking for here is to ensure that when you're locking out the top of the dip, you're not falling away and locking out behind, right? You're making sure you're locking out on top of the rings, and then you can fall away from there. So a good rep might look like this. And then falling away. Bad rep. These bad boys, right? So making sure that we are locking out the top. Again, everyone should be pretty good in terms of locking elbows, going through, so you need that kick to get through 20 reps, right? Same thing with bar muscle-ups. The main thing we're looking for here is that no other part of the hand is assisting. So if someone does get a chicken wing in there, they're not collapsing down to their forearm or something like that, resting and then popping up off that. Okay, now same sort of thing. In terms of lockout, we need to be on top of the bar. Here, not these ones. Okay? Need to make sure that you are locking out on the bar. And again, if you're doing the chicken wing, it's not here, forearm, release. Oh, crowd's going nuts. No, get down. It's a no rep. Got to keep your hands on the bar. Okay? Now, in terms of the step ups, so again, pretty straightforward movement. Making sure you're locking out the top. There's no requirement to alternate. That's fine as long as you are locking out at the top. Both feet are touching the floor at the base. Both feet touching on top of the box. Now, what you're not allowed to do is as you come down, you can't put the kettlebells on the box. They have to go back to the floor if you break. They get back up off the floor. From there, obviously not dropping any. That'll be a 10 rep penalty if you drop. So in terms of give you a clarification on what drop means. If you put the kettlebells down correctly, they should be exactly like this, right? If they're all over the shop, that's a drop, okay? Anything falling over or whatnot, if you put them down correctly with control, there should be no issues. I will send people back that drop them super anal on this because my floors don't need to be ruined for someone losing their plot a little bit, okay? Now the other thing we're looking at is when you finish your last rep, you need to make sure you step back down and then put your kettlebells down. Then walk over to the roll from there, okay? Not stepping over this side, you won't be able to save time doing that. That's the rule. Cool. Like I said, you need to make sure that, if this is for the athletes, you make sure that you've signed your waiver before you attend the venue, alright? So it makes it easier for us, makes checkout Hopefully you've got all your things in order ready to go, and then 7:30 sharp we will be kicking off. Making sure that if you sign your scorecards, your score is final, right? So you need to check based on what the judge gives you before. Don't just scribble it. I know you're tired, but don't just scribble it and walk off. If you're 100% happy, cool, sign. We can't do anything after that, guys, if you're unsure of your score post.
Yeah.